What's up, everyone, and welcome back to HBCU Game Day. It is officially football season, and we have a loaded show previewing the matchups that you need to watch this upcoming week, Week 0 and Week 1. I am Symone Stanley in our Atlanta studios, and we are going to get into the MEAC SWAC Challenge. We're going to get into the Orange Blossom Classic, including a question at quarterback. Could Andrew Body not be the starter? Stay tuned. And we're also going to talk a little bit about the SIAC. Is Clark Atlanta for real? We could find out Week 1. But first, I have to bring in my boy, Wilton. Yes. Wilton Jackson, what's up?
Symone, it's been too long. I'm glad to be back in Atlanta in these fancy studios. I mean, we haven't talked football in so long. It's football season. I'm glad to be back.
Absolutely. And we have a lot to get into, like I talked about at the top. Wilton Jackson, of course, going to be bringing some analysis. He's going to be bringing some facts, a lot of heavy hitting information. So let's go ahead and get into it. Starting with the MEAC SWAC Challenge that's going down this weekend in Atlanta Center Park Stadium is Norfolk State versus FAMU. And it's going to be two new starting quarterbacks for both teams.
Yep. So, Symone, with Norfolk State, obviously most people probably thought Otto Kuhns was going to be the starting quarterback. They're going to have a different starting quarterback, a JUCO transfer, in Jalen Daniels. He beat out Otto Kuhns for that position, but also Otto Kuhns has to sit out 4 games due to the NCAA ruling. So that'll be interesting to see how he transfers and how he fits into that particular offense for the Spartans. And then also, of course, everybody wants to know what FAMU's doing. Like we like to say, FAMU, their second home outside of Tallahassee is Atlanta. So they, the Rattlers are coming back. You have a new starting quarterback there in Daniel Richardson. He's going to be the starter there. He comes from having experience at Central Michigan and FAU. He beat out Junior Meritovich, but according to the Tallahassee Democrat, there's a possibility that Junior could still see some playing time.
So we could see 2 quarterbacks playing for FAMU, the defending Celebration Bowl champions.
Yes, that is absolutely correct. But Daniels will be the quarterback. He will be the starter.
Daniels will be the starter. Okay, and it's not uncommon for the MEAC SWAC Challenge for us to see 2 quarterbacks for a team because, it's early. That's Week 0. You're starting a week ahead of everybody else, so you got to get your game plan early than other teams that's not playing in Week 0. So that's not a cause of concern. That's not FAMU not button up. They don't got their stuff together. You know what I'm saying? It's Week 0.
Right.
So FAMU is returning 9 starters to the team. Yep. They have a new head coach, Coach Colsey. A lot of players did enter the portal with their previous coach, Willie Simmons, moving on and going to Duke University. Yep. And I think a common misconception is that FAMU lost their whole roster.
Right.
That's not true.
Right.
They're returning 9 starters.
Right. Not only they're returning 9 starters, but 55 players overall came back to this year's team. And so you're talking about a team with a new quarterback, and you still have some of those running backs from last year. You still have some of those weapons that you have from the wide receiver standpoint. So this is still a FAMU team that is very dangerous. They're still going to be obviously competing for a SWAC East crown, potentially competing for a SWAC championship, and potentially also competing to play in the Celebration Bowl. So this whole narrative that FAMU is done, they're not done yet. They're still going to be competitive for sure.
And Norfolk State University, they're returning 16 starters to the team. They also have a new offensive coordinator. This is the 4th offensive coordinator under Coach Odoms.
Yes.
4th in 4 years. He liked to keep that revolving door.
I don't know if he likes that, but I mean, in terms of he wants to keep his job and keep this team moving in the right direction, you have to make those changes where necessary. So obviously, he brings in a new offensive coordinator in Jason Phillips. You're dealing with a new quarterback, the transfer that's coming in. So Norfolk State, specifically on that offensive side of the ball, it's going to be interesting to see how they fare against a really strong FAMU defense. One thing that I like about Norfolk State's defense, necessarily they're not good in terms of stopping the run per se. They have some key people in that secondary that could potentially give FAMU's quarterback some problems if he's not on his A game.
Ooh. Let's go ahead and get into the matchups to watch for Norfolk State University. What do they need to do to get the job done Saturday?
I think that when you look at that team, obviously you have a running back in Kavon King that's coming back. So if you get him, the ball going early on in the game, that also helps your JUCO transfer quarterback that's stepping into a new system in terms of playing for Norfolk State. So I think getting that going will be strong for them. And obviously we know that Norfolk State is more of a running based team anyway, but it's going to be hard to run against FAMU's defense. Like you're talking about basically in every major statistical category, FAMU was like near the top or in the top 3 defensively, pass, rush, all of that. So it's going to be hard to run that ball. But for Norfolk State, being able to run the ball is going to be key for them.
It's going to be hard to run the ball, but keep trying.
Essentially.
That is basically what I'm hearing for you.
Yes, essentially. That is it.
And for Florida A&M, what do you think is going to be the key for them to get that victory?
So one thing that we've seen with FAMU every year, even from the years in previous years under Willie Simmons, that running game has been strong all the time. Even last year, it was extremely strong. So being able to have like the running backs that they have, that is going to essentially be Richardson's best friend. He's coming into a system in terms of being able to compete against HBCU defenses. Of course, we know what he's done at the FBS level, but he's coming in facing these HBCU defenses. So obviously, we know he's going to be able to play. But one thing a good quarterback loves, every good quarterback loves, is a strong running game. And FAMU has that capability of having multiple running backs that can get you 4, 5, 6 yards a pop. So that makes it easy for him to, deliver those passes down the field against a Norfolk State team that, again, while the last 3 years they've been terrible in stopping the run, things could change. However, if FAMU is able to run the ball, that only makes it easier for Richardson to get acclimated and being able to deliver those passes down the field for FAMU.
Okay, and you have Florida A&M winning this game, picking up where they left off last season.
Yes.
Win. And you have the special teams unit as the X factor. Why is that?
Yes, so every year FAMU has always had a strong sense of players that have been consistent on the special teams. So in this year, it won't be any different. They bring back punter Trey Wilhoit. Of course, they have Cameron Gillis, and then the kick returner Jamar Gassett, and the punt returner and Jalen Rogers. How many times did we see FAMU have explosive plays in terms of special teams? And we know they're built on speed. That's a given. So being able to I guess the most important part of that special teams unit specifically is Trey Wilhoit. Because how many times did we see FAMU at times struggle offensively last year to get things going? And so when you have a punter like Trey Wilhoit, who could potentially flip the field if your offense is not necessarily moving the ball how you want to and pinning other opposing offenses deep in their own territory, it's only your secret weapon. But really is not so secret.
Ooh, I like it. Well, MEAC SWAC Challenge is going down this Saturday in Atlanta. Wilton Jackson will be there on the ground reporting. Make sure you are tapped into HBCU Game Day for the post-game, pre-game, all the reports coming out of that.
Yes.
Week 0. But also, we have to get into the Orange Blossom Classic.
Ooh, wee boy.
Wilton, I know, it's some stuff here you don't want to get into, but we got to get into it.
We do.
Orange Blossom Classic, HBCU Labor Day weekend. What's it called when you have like a tradition?
Yes.
I hate the fact, I wish they had the camera on Wilton, because Wilton's just looking at me like I'm crazy. Y'all know what I meant. Tradition. And the past couple of years, it's been FAMU and it's been Jackson State.
It has.
This year, we have 2 new teams in the Orange Blossom Classic. We have North Carolina Central and Alabama State, 2 teams that HBCU fans want to see what they're looking like early for multiple reasons. And both reasons, probably the quarterback.
Right.
Now, North Carolina Central lost Davius Richard. He went on. He's going to be playing professional football now. Congratulations to him.
Yes.
Davius Richard tore it up in the HBCU scene for the past couple of seasons.
Right.
And Alabama State University is going to have a new starting quarterback now. We saw at SWAC Media Day, Andrew Body, the transfer from Texas Southern, was representing Alabama State there. It's been a lot of talks during the offseason about Andrew Body coming to Alabama State. But Wilton, you have a nugget for us?
Yes, I do. So in doing some research and obviously reading the reports from the Montgomery Advertiser, obviously Alabama State had their second scrimmage over the weekend. Andrew Body and he's obviously the transfer from Texas Southern, but Jonah O'Brien, the transfer from Eastern Illinois. So in those quarterbacks, out of the quarterbacks that played, Andrew Body was dressed but did not play in that second scrimmage. So again, it's August 21st. That game is coming sooner than you think. So when you look at that, it's like you could say, well, is Coach Robinson not playing Body, or is there another quarterback that's standing out a little bit more than Body? Could that be Jonah O'Brien?
Ooh.
Now, mind you, when the hype was built When Andrew Body came to Alabama State, I can guarantee you, if you talk to one in 5 people, most people would have said like, oh, Andrew Body's quarterback, Alabama State. Oh, Alabama State is a favorite immediately. Because we know the defense is going to be stout. It was stout last year. It's pretty much going to be stout this year. But offensively is where Alabama State has to be able to make those strides. They also have a new offensive coordinator. So not only are you going to have a new quarterback, you also have a new offensive coordinator too at Alabama State.
Okay, yes, and that's a lot because, again, they brought in 2 transfers. One obviously played in the SWAC, was very successful in the SWAC, and Andrew Body, which is why, he got so much media attention, why a lot of the coverage was on him. But Jonah O'Brien kind of came in and slipped under the radar, and he's getting a lot of those reps at practice, a lot of those reps at scrimmages. So that's, and like you said, we're 2 weeks out. So, but that's just something big to watch. Watch that. Let's watch that.
Yes.
Now, North Carolina Central, they also have to iron out a quarterback situation with Davius Richard moving on, but it looks like North Carolina Central has found their guy.
Yes, in Walker Harris. You're talking about a guy, most people may remember him from his experience in playing in the Circle City Classic when they beat Mississippi Valley last year, 45-3. But in about 28 games, he's thrown for about 581 yards, no interceptions. So this is the moment. Will we see Walker Harris take that next step in getting out of the shadows of Davius Richard? Because, you said it at the top, or just a few seconds ago. Davius Richard is not someone that you can just truly replace. He was a special player. We saw him, like you said, we saw him tear it up, expose defenses with his passes, with his with his legs. He was a very special player. But now this is a new chapter. This is a new chapter in Eagles football. And so when you look at that, every team when we start talking about football, every team starts, ends, begins with a quarterback. Walker Harris, this is your time. This is the time that you've been waiting for, sitting behind Richard for 2 years. And the one thing that could help him that's going to also be effective for North Carolina Central too, they lost Mookie Collier. But then they have Jamari Taylor, who has valuable experience running the ball for North Carolina Central. So in this particular game, you're going up, if you're North Carolina Central, you're going up against a very strong Alabama State defense that's going to be looking to not allow you to run the ball. So if you're Walker Harris, you need to be on your A game.
You got me scared. I'm not even playing. Let's go ahead and get into the matchups to watch for this game. If you are North Carolina Central University, what do you have to do to get this win?
You have to be able to make plays. And I say that, and it sounds very simple, but you're talking about, I'm just giving you a few stats here. Alabama State scoring offense last year was 8th in the SWAC. Total offense, they were 9th in the SWAC. Rush offense, they were 11th in the SWAC. Pass offense, they were 7th in the SWAC. Now, granted, if you have a defense that's only allowing 14.5 points a game, then, that's a big difference. But at some point, especially when you're going up against a North Carolina Central team that was able to average somewhere between 28 to 30 points a game, you're going to have to score. This is why, if you're Eddie Robinson, you brought in a new offensive coordinator in Chris Barnett to escalate what your offense can be. And so you have dynamic quarterbacks. You have an Andrew Body. We know what he can do when he's healthy. And now you have another quarterback in Jonah O'Brien who can be a potential starter as well. It's just a matter of which one do the players on that offensive side of the ball respond to the most. And that's something we're going to have to wait to see.
Yeah, it's going to be good. Labor Day weekend tradition.
Yes. Got to get that tradition.
Right. Oh, now, yeah. Now you want to throw out the word tradition. But Alabama State, after they figure out quarterback, what else do they have to do to get this win in the Orange Blossom Classic? I
think for Alabama State, you're looking at making sure, again, going back to the fact of who's going to be, for Alabama State, who's going to be quarterback for Alabama State. And then also looking at, is the defense going to be able to stop North Carolina Central's passing attack and or rushing attack? Again, in previous years, we've seen Alabama State not have any issues on the defensive side of the ball. So I don't expect anything different in terms of Alabama State from the defensive side. Some of the key players they return are James Burgess. He was a senior this year. He was tied for 3rd in SWAC in interceptions last year. The linebacker, DeMarcus Cunningham, linebacker Rico Dozier, he was very significant. He was the Arkansas Pine Bluff transfer. You also have a couple offensive linemen, and then also defensive lineman Traquan Thomas could be critical for them as well.
All right, so Orange Blossom Classic, that's going to be a good one, Labor Day weekend. So we talked about the MEAC SWAC. challenge. We talked about the Orange Blossom Classic, which is basically another MEAC SWAC challenge this year.
Yep.
Now let's flip over to some Division II HBCU football, heading on down to Atlanta.
Yes.
To Georgia.
Yes.
And we have Clark Atlanta University playing Fort Valley State University week 1, and the SIAC is divisionless, so every game, no matter the opponent, every week matters when it comes to the playoffs and get into that SIAC championship. But we want to talk about Clark Atlanta versus Fort Valley State University because this is a game that can show a lot for both teams because Fort Valley State University doesn't want to come into this game sleeping on Clark Atlanta, and Clark Atlanta wants to use this game as an opportunity to put the SIAC on notice on what they can do. Fort Valley State predicted to finish number 2 in the SIAC. Clark Atlanta predicted to finish number 10, but Clark Atlanta had a heck of an offseason, and they're still in headlines for what they were able to do this offseason.
Absolutely. So you talk about still in headlines, and we talk about Dr. Cavill's.
Oh, hold on, Wilton. Hold on.
I gotta mention that.
We gotta start with why. We gotta start with their off season. Why they got headlines. The people need to know why we talk about Clark. Because they're gonna be like, why we talking about Clark?
So not only do they have key players coming back in terms of, from an SIAC standpoint, of course they have a quarterback in David Wright, came from Allen, who's gonna be significant for them in terms of their success.
SIAC Offensive Player of the Year last season, coming to Clark Atlanta.
Yes. Also, and then offensive lineman in Elijah Sharif, defensive lineman Marcus Sherman, and then also some critical DBs in Dalil Wilkins and Cameron Ivey that could be very important for the Panthers defense.
I know you trying to get to Dr. Cavill.
I'm just trying to get to the point of.
Let me go ahead and fill the people in just real quick.
The coach, he's been. You talking about stealing headlines?
Let me tell the people why we talk about Clark real quick because, we talk about the MEAC and the SWAC. We might have some new viewers who aren't familiar with the SIAC, so I got to fill them in.
Go ahead.
So Clark Atlanta, basically, so Wilton could get to what he was talking about. Clark Atlanta had a heck of an offseason. Coach Teddy Keaton came from Allen University. Coach Keaton flipped Allen University around, turned them into a serious competitor in the SIAC.
Yep.
He brought his talents to Clark Atlanta University, obviously in Atlanta. He felt like he could recruit better here. They have a new field. He brought the SIAC Offensive Player of the Year from Allen to Clark. So automatically, we talk about these teams that don't have their quarterback situation figured out. Clark Atlanta does. So he brought a lot of other players from Allen to Clark. So Clark is a team that a lot of people have their eye on because of the way that they brought in that coach that's proven that he can win. Coach Keaton said in his press conference, if Coach Keaton can't win at Clark Atlanta, nobody can win at Clark Atlanta. So they're bringing in a lot of confidence, a lot of buzz is on the team, and they're going up against the number 2 team preseason predicted to be number 2 in the SIAC against Fort Valley State. So this is a matchup where we can see is Clark Atlanta for real. Now that I gave y'all all that, go ahead, Wilton, and talk about Dr. Cavill. Y'all know Dr. Cavill.
Yes,
y'all know
inside
Dr.
the HBCU
Cavill.
Sports Lab. So he puts together his top 25 for the basically MEAC, SWAC, and then SIAC and CIAA. So Clark Atlanta was pretty high on his list, and so as we talked off air, Coach Keaton found some comments to say about that ranking for Clark Atlanta because he essentially felt like it was high. He called it rat poison. And so in that, it's just like he basically was insinuating that, you need to look at what Clark Atlanta's practice habits are like and things of that nature. And it's just like, at the end of the day, this was the same team that was 0-10 last year. 0-10 and 0-8 in conference play. So, but again, things change. This is a new year. And to your point of what you said about, if they get a win, or for sure, even if they keep this game truly competitive, this is a good way as a signal to say like, hey, Clark Atlanta could be potentially trying to make some noise in the SIAC this year.
So I'm confused. And I know we have a lot of crossover viewers between Dr. Cavill, inside HBCU Sports Lab, and HBCU Game Day. Mm-hmm. I'm a little bit confused. So Dr. Cavill gave Clark Atlanta a high rating.
That is correct.
And Coach Keaton was not happy with a high rating?
I wouldn't necessarily say that he wasn't happy. He was just more so saying, based off his comments, literally he said this is rat poison, more so based off the fact that, hey, we haven't played a game yet, so we don't really know if we, I guess deserve to be in this spot.
So he's saying, like, hold on, slow down,
exactly.
slow down.
Don't believe the hype of where we are on this poll right away.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, I can see that.
That's what he's getting at.
Okay. And that's why this week 1 game is so important, because like you said, it's not even about getting a win for Clark Atlanta. It's us seeing, can they be competitive? Last time Clark Atlanta played Fort Valley State, it was 40-17.
That is correct.
So this is a good litmus test to see, okay, where's Clark Atlanta at? Are they for real and all of that? So we'll see how those rankings might change after week 1. But I know we talk a lot about MEAC, we talk a lot about SWAC, but there's a lot of great football in the SIAC and also in the CIAA.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. Steve does a wonderful job with his show throughout football season. Make sure to check that out on HBCUGameday.com.
Yes, and we don't have a CIAA preview. Me and Wilton don't have a CIAA preview for you. But that doesn't mean HBCU Game Day does it. So for all my CIAA lovers, make sure you have your notification bells on, because HBCU Game Day is going to be dropping D2 HBCU Football Matters that our Stephen J. Gaither hosts. He covers a lot of CIAA football as he is based in North Carolina, born and raised. Yeah.
Your stumping grounds.
So yeah, no CIAA preview for me and Wilton, but HBCU Game Day will have the CIAA covered. But Wilton, a great conversation today.
Oh, absolutely. I'm excited. I'm ready to see teams on the field, hits, runs, passes. I'm ready to get to that.
So you just ready to see some hits?
I mean, I'm really ready for it all. I mean, when I say ready for it all, like, I'm ready for the teams, I'm ready for the fans, I'm ready for the trash talk, I'm ready for the bands. I'm like the whole HBCU culture. I think it's going to be a really interesting year in all of the conferences. I mean, you talk about, we just go back to the SWAC real quick. How many new coaches there are in the SWAC leading new teams? What is the MEAC going to look like when players like Davies Richard are no longer there? Who's going to be that prominent team? Will it still be North Carolina Central? Because honestly, if I'm Howard, I got a lot to say. You know, Howard is there. And what we didn't also mention is, what will South Carolina State do this year? Right. That could be a team that makes some strides really quick after having a subpar season last year. Chennis Berry is their coach. I don't expect anything less than a solid season from South Carolina State. Don't sleep on South Carolina State.
You made it seem like you was about to make some bold prediction. You just said it's solid.
Saying,
that's a safe prediction.
I feel like
you set it up like don't expect anything less than a solid season.
I think that people have somewhat forgotten South Carolina State based off Buddy Pugh's last season last year. I mean, because of course, obviously, how many times did we go in last year thinking that North Carolina Central was going to almost be a shoe foot in terms of the Celebration Bowl? Most of us thought that. And then Howard said, nah, we got something to say about that.
They said, not so bad.
Exactly. So, and not only that, you got Central, you got Howard, you got Morgan State. Like, you talk about a Morgan State team that's a couple plays away from potentially playing in the Celebration Bowl. Mm-hmm. Right? You know, they were in that mix of the teams at the end of the season that could have potentially been playing had things kind of folded in their way. But it didn't work out that way. But this is still a team that's going to come back very physical. We know that. And then there's South Carolina State.
It's going to be a good season.
Yep.
It's going to be a great season across all of our conferences. So make sure you guys are tapped in every day to HBCU Game Day. Have your notification bells on. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. I am Symone Stanley. He is Wilton Jackson. And until next time, bye.